Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The bathroom door clicked once, then my aunt rushed in. A test hit the sink and rattled hard. Two lines, clear and final, stared like a verdict. "Alex," she whispered, breath sharp, eyes locked. "I'm Alex, 27 now, and I remember the jolt. Back then I was 18 and reckless." She was older and furious and shaking. "Your mom can't know," she said, voice flat. Keys scraped the front lock like a countdown starting. My aunt grabbed my wrist and pulled hard. "Hide it," she hissed, shoulders tight and squared. Footsteps neared the hall, too close to lie. I snapped the cabinet and palmed the test. My heart punched steady beats against bone. She wiped her face and steadied her breathing. The front door opened and time shrank. "Hey, you two," my mother called down the hall. My aunt forced a smile that didn't settle. I shoved the test into my pocket slowly. "Coming," I said, voice too bright already. We stepped into the kitchen like actors on cue. Mom watched our faces and missed nothing. "How was your morning?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "Quiet," my aunt answered, hands clasped too tight. Mom turned to me and waited, no mercy. "School okay today?" she asked without blinking. "Fine," I said and reached for water. My hand shook and clinked the glass. "Help me with boxes later," Mom continued. Her tone stayed gentle while her gaze cut. My aunt nodded and found a neutral stare. I kept my mouth shut and counted breaths. Mom left the room but not the house. Her phone rang and she drifted upstairs. My aunt moved close enough to whisper, "We need a clinic today before she suspects." "Appointment first," I said, trying for calm. "We keep our phones clean and separate." She nodded, jaw tight, resolve settling. "We tell her after results," she breathed. My pocket felt heavier than a brick. If Mom asked for laundry, I was done. If she hugged me, the test would crinkle. "Back door," my aunt mouthed, already moving. We slipped outside like we had rehearsed it. The yard was quiet enough to hear thoughts. "Delete our last week," she said and waited. I cleared messages and watched them vanish. "Cash only," she added, eyes on the street. I understood the rule and the risk. 2 hours from now," she said, chin lifted. I nodded once because talk would crack. The kitchen window slid open above us suddenly. Mom's voice drifted out, casual and probing. "What are you planning this afternoon?" she asked. My aunt smiled up, too wide, too fast. "Errands," she said, fingers pinching her wrist. "We'll be back before dinner," I added quickly. Mom paused long enough to raise alarms. "Don't forget the boxes," she replied slowly. We separated at the gate without touching. She walked left and never looked back. I walked right and palmed the test. It warmed against my skin like evidence. At the corner, I stopped and faced the day. I wasn't a victim and I wasn't brave. I was responsible and late and cornered. And the clock finally had teeth. I scrubbed my messages until the thread looked new. Her text popped again with a street and a time. "Cash only, no names, walk in separate." I stared at the blank thread and felt watched. I needed money fast and untraceable today. The ATM spit out bills and a warning. I stuffed the wallet and pictured cameras recording. A delivery scooter roared past and jolted me. She waited on the next block, head low. No greeting, just a nod and a countdown. "We split here," she murmured with clipped breath. "Meet there at 12 sharp, don't drift." My phone buzzed with a call from home. "Grab those boxes by 3, the voice urged. "I'm on it," I answered and forced normal. Silence followed, then a brief okay that lingered. Traffic stalled, so I took the bus. I picked the back corner and faced aisle. Every stop felt like a checkpoint with sirens. I counted stations and rehearsed clean answers. Her follow-up text arrived with a final rule. No jewelry, no signatures outside the forms. I typed understood and locked the screen. My reflection looked older than yesterday somehow. I reached the building first and stayed moving. A security guard glanced over, then looked bored. I paced, then circled the block once more. Better late than early when secrets sweat. She crossed toward me without eye contact. Inside, different desks 30 feet apart, she breathed. We stepped through the doors and split angles. I chose a chair that faced exits. A receptionist called numbers in even rhythm. When mine hit, I stood and kept steady. Paternity panel only, confirm your age, she said. 18, I answered, and the system accepted it. Paperwork slid forward and waited for ink. No backstory requested, only initials and consent. I signed quickly and kept my wrist firm. A band snapped around my arm for tracking. A nurse led me toward a quiet room. Quick draw, minimal discomfort, look away, she advised. I did and counted slow breaths to 4. The vial filled while Y thoughts ran ahead. Outside the door we crossed in passing. Her face was composed but her knuckles rigid. All set, she whispered, eyes flicking down. I nodded once, mouth dry and stubborn. Billing asked for tender once and looked up. I placed the envelope and pushed it forward. The register clicked and a receipt printed crisply. I palmed it without checking details, heart hammering. A counselor appeared with a neutral clipboard stance. Results in writing, collected with identification, they explained. Timeline is 1 week, maybe sooner, they added. Pick up together or authorize separately, they offered. She chose together and met my eyes. Her shoulders loosened for the first time. I felt relief and dread shake hands. Together meant truth on the same breath. We exited on opposite sides by design. I circled to the alley and stopped thinking. The test still rode in my pocket like lead. I wrapped it tight and dumped it deep. My screen lit again with a new message. Be home by 2, I need help now. I typed a casual yes and checked the time. 1:30 meant sprinting and 0 mistakes. She reappeared at the corner, face controlled. Burn your calendar for the week, she muttered. Therapy tomorrow, lawyer after we go clean. Her gaze held, then shifted to the street. A familiar car rolled by and slowed down. We turned away in sync and studied nothing. The engine idled, then surged back into traffic. I tasted metal and swallowed it dry. Later we agree on one story, she said. Sparse facts, no extras, no nervous chatter. I nodded because improvising would destroy everything. We backed away like strangers at a crosswalk. On the bus home, I hid the receipt. I tucked it under the insole and winced. If it slipped, the day would implode. I pressed my heel down and memorized the seam. Home called again before I reached our street. Where are you? Came the calm question. Almost there, I answered and checked the sky. Good, the voice replied, cool and exact. At the door, I rehearsed being ordinary. No sprinting, no panic, just steady chore voice. I pushed inside and found her in the hallway. She smiled faintly, then studied my face. Lift first, then sort, she directed with purpose. I grabbed the nearest stack and bent low. My shoulders burned while her eyes tracked me. She thanked me softly, then asked for more. The phone buzzed again, one final ping. A clinic number flashed and vanished mid-ring. I froze and felt her gaze sharpen. Spam, I muttered and kept moving boxes. We worked side by side in brittle peace. Every scrape sounded like a confession scraping out. My mouth stayed shut and my wrists ached. She counted under her breath and kept score. When we paused, she offered water and stillness. You seem off, she observed with surgical calm. Long bus ride, I answered and rubbed my neck. Her hand hovered, then fell back quickly. I finished the stack and checked my shoes. The edge of paper pressed against my heel. I shifted weight and hid the outline deeper. One slip and the house would detonate. My phone lit up on the table while she watched. Unknown number, short ring, another buzz that died. She folded her arms and waited me out. I let it go dark and forced a breath. Spam again, I reached for a glass and missed. Her eyebrow lifted like a lever that revealed things. Twice in one day, she murmured without blinking. Silence expanded until footsteps creaked above us. Grab the dolly from the garage, her voice steadied. I walked past her and kept my pace even. The insole bit my heel with a sharp edge. One wrong bend and the slip would show. The gate protested and then settled into place. I checked my shoe in a crouch behind it. Paper shifted under sweat and threatened to curl. I pressed the seam flat and swallowed heat. She called from inside, closer than I expected. Need you upstairs now? The tone asked questions. I straightened fast and wiped my palms dry. No time for adjustments if she stared. On the landing, she stood with a folder. Sort these by address, she said, gaze steady. I spread pages in neat stacks across carpet. She hovered and watched each movement for tremors. A text blinked again and pulsed insistently. I turned the phone face down and kept sorting. Take it, she urged, too casual for comfort. My throat tightened as the ringtone restarted. Hello, my voice sounded normal to my ears. Your lab confirmation is ready, the line delivered. Pickup requires both parties or signed authorization. I kept my eyes on the list and nodded. Understood, I ended the call and held still. What lab? Her hands paused over the folder. A school thing, the lie came thin and brittle. She closed the drawer and didn't blink. School calls you now, her mouth set like concrete. I tried to smile and ran out of air. Special permission for a research panel, I offered. She tapped the table twice and did not move. Fine, bring me the paper later, she pivoted. Relief flared and then burned out quickly. The paper lived inside my shoe alone. I needed another plan before dinner caught up. My aunt texted a code we'd never used. Meet at the store lot in 12. I typed a single period and pocketed the phone. If she called again, the kitchen would collapse. I asked for a quick errand to town. Trash bags and tape, I added without hesitation. She weighed the request and checked the clock. 10 minutes there, 10 back, no detours. I jogged to the corner and slowed down. A familiar sedan eased into the curb space. The window slid halfway and stayed undecided. Get in, my aunt whispered, eyes forward. We drove 2 blocks and looped around. Clinic needs signatures today, not next week. She held up a form with highlighted lines. We authorize separate pickup, then divide fallout. We tell her after results, I pushed back. She already suspects, came the flat reply. I pictured the drawer closing on my lie. A timeline that once stretched now snapped. We parked behind a delivery truck and waited. Don't speak unless asked for legal status. Her hand trembled once and went still. I recognized fear wearing a disciplined mask. Inside, a clerk watched our approach carefully. Authorization for record release, she prompted briskly. We signed in different squares and compared dates. Stamps hit paper like small detonations. The elevator doors opened on our floor. We stepped out separately and followed arrows. A staffer guided me to a second window. Confirm your year of birth, they requested. I repeated it and felt my jaw tighten. Thumbprint taken, wrist tagged, final check complete. Your documents can be collected tomorrow afternoon. My stomach clenched and then let go slowly. Back in the car, we didn't talk. She steered through an intersection and exhaled hard. I'll be at the pickup before you arrive. We both knew why that mattered. My phone rang again with the home number. Where did you go? The question carried weight. Store run, I answered and named the items. A pause stretched while the engine idled. Bring the receipt when you return, the trap clicked. Of course, I looked at my empty hands. We actually bought nothing due to a glitch. Even to me that sounded like smoke. Then come back now, the voice cut off. I faced my aunt and opened the door. We pivot to transparency soon, she warned quietly. Soon had become a wall closing in. At the house, she met me in the hallway. She eyed my shoes as if drawn by a magnet. Lose those, they're tracking dirt everywhere. I bent slowly and tried to keep breathing. The paper edge threatened to surface with the heel. I tilted my foot and rolled the fabric inward. She reached for the pair and hesitated a beat. Leave them by the door and wash up. I crossed to the sink and scrubbed fast. Water ran and thoughts lined up like tiles. Tell her now or let tomorrow deliver proof. I dried my hands and faced the room. She waited at the table with 2 mugs. Sit, she instructed, voice neutral and cold. My aunt texted a single word that read later. The screen flashed once and went quiet. We're having a family check-in tonight. She watched for flinches and logged them mentally. 7 o'clock sharp, no excuses, phones off. I nodded and felt the floor tilt. A knock landed at the front door twice. We both turned before either could speak. My aunt stepped in with a neutral smile. Perfect timing, my mother said without warmth. The three of us stood like a diagram. No one moved first, which told me everything. My heartbeat hammered, but my voice stayed calm. 7 works I managed and the clock began. She collected our phones and powered them down. 7 means now, her palm stayed open until I complied. My aunt slid hers across without blinking. I placed mine last and braced for impact. Who called twice today? Her eyes pinned me. A wrong number. I kept my jaw steady. She waited through my silence like it proved something. The room felt smaller with every breath. Shoes off, her gaze dropped to the doorway. I hesitated a heartbeat too long and lost ground. My aunt's glance flicked down and back up. I bent slowly, pretending it was nothing. The inner lining tugged up and caught paper. A corner flashed and scraped my heel raw. She saw it, then reached before I could. Stand up, she ordered, voice flat and final. I straightened and lifted my foot awkwardly. She peeled back the lining and found the slip. The clinic name read loud even without sound. She turned it toward my aunt and didn't blink. Explain, one word landed like a gavel. My aunt steadied herself with the table edge. Medical testing, she answered, keeping her gaze level. For what? The question snapped like a trap. Paternity confirmation, I said before fear gagged me. Silence knocked once and sat down between us. Mom, absorb. Add the letters and the date. She inhaled slowly and held it too long. How far along? Her voice shifted into triage mode. First trimester, my aunt replied, eyes fixed forward. I watched the calculation run across my mother's face. She looked at me, then at the calendar. Were you legal? She didn't blink until I answered. Yes, the word landed heavy and stayed there. Her shoulders dropped a fraction, not relief. Then we handle this by the book. Tomorrow the lab releases documents, I said carefully. We set it up for joint pickup. My aunt nodded once, tiny and decisive. Mom's stare moved between us like a metronome. No more hidden objects in shoes, she added. Nothing under carpets, nothing behind curtains. I nodded because arguments would burn the floor. My aunt folded her hands to stop shaking. We notify counsel tonight, Mom continued briskly. Therapy intake tomorrow morning after the pickup. I felt my stomach twist and then hold. Structure meant survival, but exposure meant fallout. What about family? My aunt's voice barely rose. Limited facts, zero gossip, controlled statements. Mom wrote 3 words on a sticky note. Her pen tore the paper with the last stroke. She pushed a legal pad across to me. List everyone who needs a direct call. Names spilled out faster than I could breathe. Each one felt like a fuse in a line. My aunt reached into her bag and stopped. Insurance will ask for relationship details. Mom's eyes flicked up like a blade. We will answer exactly and only what's required. Blood draw was today, I added quietly. Results tomorrow afternoon, pickup requires ID. My mother looked at the clock and nodded. You both go with me, not alone. A knock rattled the frame and froze us. Neighbor, harmless, wrong time, persistent knocker. Mom held up a warning finger and waited. The knocking faded, but none of us moved. Ground rules until tomorrow, she numbered them cleanly. No separate meetings, no whispered plans, full transparency. My aunt agreed first, voice steady but tight. I followed because anything else meant war. Phones stay off until morning, she concluded. If the lab calls again, they can wait. My chest loosened and then tightened again. Waiting meant control, and control meant questions. She slid the clinic slip back to me. Keep it visible, not hidden. I placed it on the table where it gleamed. Nothing left to smuggle, nothing left to stash. We eat, then sleep, then show up, Mom said. Routine as a shield, simple and brutal. My aunt's shoulders finally lowered an inch. Mine didn't, because morning was already watching. The door swung open and a number flashed. We stood together and walked to the counter. Identification, the clerk requested with professional chill. A sealed envelope slid across, waiting to explode. Open it here, my mother's voice carried command. The clerk looked away, already moving to the next. I broke the seal and scanned the lines. Probability near certain, no room for doubt. Air left the space like a drain unplugged. My aunt gripped the edge to stop shaking. My mother kept reading until her hands steadied. She folded the report once and held it. "We proceed," she said, and I nodded. No yelling, no chaos, only controlled steps. "Council this afternoon, intake first thing." We walked out as one unit, fragile. In the car, she dialed the attorney. "Urgent consultation," she requested in a clipped tone. A time slot opened 40 minutes ahead. We merged into traffic without another word. At a red light, my aunt whispered barely, "I can move out tonight if needed." My mother stared through the windshield without blinking. "You will not run," we set structure. The office buzzed with quiet rules and patience. A legal pad appeared with pointed questions. Timeline, ages, consent, living situation. We answered cleanly, each detail placed carefully. "Next, a safety plan," the lawyer suggested calmly. "Daily schedule, separate finances, document everything." My mother wrote faster than I could think. Every line tightened the path forward. A knock on the door interrupted the outline. Reception slid in a message and withdrew quickly. The counselor could see us in 15. We traded a look that said brace. Therapy room, chairs angled for confrontation and truth. Ground rules, the clinician began with practiced rhythm. "Speak directly, no blame language, concrete requests." I agreed because survival needed fluency. "Identify the immediate fear," the clinician prompted. "Losing control," my mother answered without hesitation. "Be precise," they urged, eyes steady and kind. "Losing my child and my family," she clarified. "Identify one boundary," the clinician continued smoothly. "No secrecy in this house from now," she declared. My aunt swallowed and nodded once. "I accept that. I need privacy for appointments." "Privacy is not secrecy," the clinician replied evenly. "Share dates and times, keep content personal." I felt something unclench that had strangled days. We wrote the boundary down and signed it. The phone on the table buzzed softly. The clinician glanced at the screen and paused. "Do we need to answer that now?" My mother shook her head and pressed mute. "Consequence for breaking the boundary?" the clinician asked. "Relocation and full legal involvement immediately," my mother stated. I looked at my aunt and saw resolve. No one flinched, which surprised me. "Assign roles for the next week," the clinician suggested. My mother took logistics and family calls. I took appointments and documentation and updates. My aunt took healthcare and her schedule. We left with a signed plan and dates. Outside, wind slapped our faces and reset everything. My aunt exhaled once and stood taller. My mother placed the report back in my hands. "Holmes, one word, no debate, full meaning." On the drive, the phone finally pinged repeatedly. Relatives, questions, rumors like sparks flying. "Silent mode," my mother ordered, watching the mirrors. At the house, she set chairs in a triangle. "We will speak 3 sentences each per turn. Short, precise, verifiable." "Begin," she said, and the room leaned in. "My fault, I own it, I will cooperate." "Current status stable, we follow the plan." "Medical care arranged, I will send updates." We rotated again, slower, each line landing. A knock hit the front door 3 times. Neighbor again, curious and relentless today. My mother opened a crack and blocked the view. "Another time," she said and shut it. Back at the triangle, she slid me a folder. "List what we must tell and to whom." I wrote bullet points with shaking hands. "Dates, appointments, proof, nothing extra, nothing vague." "We start with the grandparents," she decided calmly. "Video call tonight, factual statements only." My aunt stared at the table and breathed. "Afterward, I will sleep elsewhere for now." "Not a punishment, a cooling period," my mother added. A spare key landed between them quietly. Rules attached to it like invisible thread. Backdoor only, daytime visits, scheduled check-ins. Evening crept closer and phones lit again. I muted notifications and watched the time. 9 o'clock, we would face the first audience. My throat tightened but my spine straightened. Before the call, my mother turned to me. "One commitment from you right now." "Full honesty, no spin, no heroics," I answered. She studied my face, then gave a single nod. The screen connected and 2 familiar faces appeared. My mother delivered the facts in 30 seconds. No adjectives, no speculation, only verifiable statements. Silence followed long, then a quiet request for copies. We will send documents tomorrow, my mother replied. The faces on the screen looked older suddenly. They signed off with brief blessings and no judgment. The call ended, but the pressure didn't. My aunt stood with her overnight bag and paused. I will text when I reach the apartment. My mother opened the door and stepped aside. They didn't touch, but something passed between them. When the latch clicked, the house exhaled once. We cleaned the table and stacked the forms. My mother handed me a small notebook. Start a log tonight, every action, every promise. I wrote the first line while she watched. Time, task, outcome. I closed the notebook and felt anchored. Tomorrow would test it harder than today. The alarm chirped and she knocked once. Up, clinic at 9, no delays. I pulled on shoes and grabbed the notebook. Today would set the pattern or break it. In the car, we reviewed tasks aloud. I read the appointments while she drove. At each line, she checked for gaps. No improvising today, she warned, eyes forward. We reached the office and signed in. My aunt arrived from her place, punctual and wordless. We chose distant chairs and kept our breathing even. A nurse called us together, no escape routes. Vitals stable, came the quick assessment. Estimated due month is late winter. We listened like it was a verdict. Next, screenings and a care plan. The clinician asked about support and logistics. 2 addresses, coordinated calendars, safety contact established. We handed over the written summary from yesterday. They nodded once and printed the next steps. Classes start next month, the clinician continued briskly. Attendance matters for outcomes and stress reduction. I raised a hand and committed to all sessions. My aunt studied me, surprised, then looked away. A receptionist waved us to a side desk. Insurance needs acknowledgement of paternity, they stated plainly. 2 forms appeared with signatures and dates. I signed cleanly while my hand stayed steady. We stepped outside and a voice called my name. A cousin stood near the curb and stared hard. What is happening? They demanded, arms crossed. My mother blocked the angle and kept it brief. Medical situation managed, not yours to dissect. The cousin held my gaze and waited. I gave nothing because anything would spread. They cursed softly and backed off. Back home, we drafted a short announcement. 3 lines, factual, measured, no provocations. I sent it to a few who needed clarity. Then I disabled comments and closed the app. Evening brought a message marked urgent. My aunt wanted to stop by unplanned. Tomorrow noon on the schedule, my mother replied. Silence followed, then a reluctant thumbs up. We prepared the spare room for supervised visits. Notebook on the table, times printed on the wall. I hated the sterility and needed it anyway. Control beats chaos when trust is fragile. Therapy check-in landed after dinner. Name 1 action that repairs damage, the clinician asked. Show up early and stay accountable, I answered. Pick a measurable proof, they pushed, unblinking. I will attend every class and log reflections. I wrote that promise in my notebook. My mother underlined it once and dated the page. My aunt read it and folded her arms. Legal follow-up arrived by email at 9. Temporary custody framework, financial obligations, communication protocol. We reviewed every clause and signed without theatrics. A separate account opened with automatic transfers. The next morning, we met the social worker. Home assessment, risk checklist, emergency contacts verified. I pointed to the plan and the log. They photographed nothing and noted everything. Before leaving, my aunt pulled me aside. Thank you for showing up, she murmured carefully. I nodded once because speeches wrought progress. Keep bringing proof, she added and stepped back. That night we held another micro session at the table. 3 sentences each, no detours, no spin. I will not hide anymore, I said evenly. Then keep proving it, my mother answered without flinching. We closed the day with a simple ritual. Tomorrow's list read aloud, signatures beneath it. I drew a box beside my name. I left it empty on purpose until morning.